Howdy, 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 folks. I hope you're ready for some fascinating but ultimately useless facts about No Man's Sky. If you're looking for useful facts, I have an entire channel dedicated to that stuff. Check it out after this. But right now, we're focusing on facts so arbitrary that they didn't even make it into my first 30 useless facts video. I'm Kanaju, and these are 20 more useless No Man's Sky facts, free of charge. Number 1. Heart of the Sun has more levels in its crafting tree than any other product. I know. That's pretty useless, right? But bear with me. So, fusion igniters and stasis devices have the most complex crafting trees in the game, easily. However, their crafting trees are only 6 levels deep. See, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. The Heart of the Sun, its tree is 11 levels deep. It's actually too tall to fit on the screen. The user interface literally can't handle it. And because the Heart of the Sun is the final ingredient needed to install Remembrance, and the fusion igniter and stasis device aren't used in any technology, that makes Remembrance the most complex tech to install in the game, having 11 steps from start to finish. Say it with me. Ooh. Ah. I have 19 more of these, folks. Number 2. Orbital on the Orbital poster is misspelled. It's true. The word orbital on this poster is misspelled as Orbital with an extra T. Unless, of course, Orbital is the name of this planet and the poster just happens to be called Orbital Poster. Wait a second. In that case, the poster's name could also be misspelled. Number 3. Your jetpack can actually drop below 0% fuel. So if you're using rocket boots instead of your usual jetpack, you may notice your fuel drop into negative percentages. Of course, this should be impossible, but since the rocket boots use a predetermined amount of fuel with every jump, if you use them when you're right above 0, it'll drop into the negative range. No Man's Sky, making the impossible possible. Number 4. The same error screen can be seen on seemingly unrelated devices across the galaxy. Here it is on a derelict freighter. Here it is in a space station. Here it is on a downed satellite and a random terraformed planet. It's even on the space anomaly. What does it mean though, you may ask? Well, actually, no one knows. Could be a generic error message. Could be that all of this tech runs on the same Atlas operating system. Or it could mean that some kind of corruption is spreading across the galaxy, slowly destroying technology it comes to contact with. Of course, it could also just be easier to use the same texture in multiple places, since this is a video game after all. I suppose we'll never know. Unless they tell us. Number 5. These are called Gek Charms. How do I know? Well, back in the day, they actually used to be a trade commodity that you could buy, sell, and give as gifts. They are considered good luck charms by the Gek. Speaking of defunct trade commodities though, number 6, Grahgrah. This illegal trade goods description states, a canister of the now banned Viking battle gas, traditionally inhaled on the eve of battle. What's interesting is that this was not only banned in lore, but effectively in-game for a time as well. Grahgrah was one of the original trade commodities that was removed at the same time as the Gek Charm and the Korvac's Fascination Bead, in order to streamline alien interactions, I imagine. I was genuinely excited to see it return in the Outlaws update. It felt like an Easter egg for those who'd been around since the early days. Number 7. You can purchase inventory out of order. By that I mean you can actually select whichever inventory slot you would like to purchase when upgrading. So if you want to have the world's dumbest inventory layout, like me, now you can. Talk about player choice. Number 8. You can look around the loading screen. I know this was really well known and pretty much everyone would do it at launch, but I'm curious if new players do this as well. Do you look around the loading screen? Let me know in the comments below if you don't mind. Number 9. No Man's Sky does have cliche video game exploding barrels. So, of course, no classic video game would be complete without some form of explosive barrel. You know, the kind you shoot to damage enemies foolish enough to stand next to it. Well, 2020's Desolation update added derelict freighters with procedural interiors, but more importantly, it also added exploding barrels, the final missing piece in fulfilling the game's full potential. Number 10. Low gravity particle effects. Of course, low gravity planets affect your jump height and speed, however they also affect the rubble created from mining. This may seem like a no-brainer, of course, but considering how unaffected starship flight and enemy movements and other details appear, you have to appreciate the attention to this specific detail. But alright, we're halfway through the list already. If you're enjoying it, feel free to leave a like while I speed around the next few. Let's go! Let's go. Number 11. Did you know there are underwater-only emotes? It's true. Just try and do this on top of a mountain or in your freighter. I dare you. Number 12. There's no freighter destruction effect. Sorry folks, back in the day freighters would actually just disappear when destroyed. Nowadays they just sort of sit there damaged until you leave the area. Either way, no satisfying explosion to be found. Number 13. Rubble of the first spawn is the only space encounter in the game with no known interaction. It doesn't have an animation, you can't damage it, doesn't damage you, you can't hail it, doesn't come with any loot, it just sits there. Menacingly. Number 14.
Communication stations
that were placed back in the day maintain their positions, even if the planets they were originally placed on didn't. Basically, this can lead to them being buried deep beneath the bedrock or out way in space. Speaking of which, number 15, the planets in No Man's Sky don't rotate or orbit. They're in fact fixed in position. Instead, the stars rotate around the local system. While unrealistic, this serves gameplay by keeping planets close to each other, visuals by always having another planet on the horizon, and performance because can you imagine having to rotate an entire planet with thousands of building parts, creatures, plants, players, and more, and then syncing that across multiplayer, and then running that on a PS4 or a Nintendo Switch? Oof. Yeah, I don't think so. Number 16. Did you know that one translation of jellyfish in Portuguese is agua viva? Now, I apologize if I'm saying that with somewhat of a Spanish accent, since I don't actually speak Portuguese, but agua viva can translate to running water, or somewhat more literally, living water. I mention this because living water is a resource that can only be obtained from children of Helios, which are basically giant space jellyfish. Living water, agua viva. Speaking of jellyfish though, number 17. Abyssal horrors are the only enemy type with dedicated underwater, space, and regular combat varieties. Specifically the jellyfish, abyssal horrors. So the original versions appear when you mine underwater resources. Green versions were added in 2020's Desolation update to derelict freighters, giving us a regular combat version that pretty much does the same thing, they just float in your general direction. And then in 2022's Endurance update gave us space versions, which also appear as you mine resources in space and also float in your general direction. So apparently jellyfish are a very prevalent form of life in the No Man's Sky universe. Number 18. Your freighter won't have any Hangar NPCs in uncharted systems. Since your freighter's Hangar NPCs are based on the current system's faction, uncharted systems simply don't have a faction, so you don't get any NPCs. Number 19. Attacking juvenile fauna will cause their guardians to become aggressive. Planetary fauna can often be found in herds and small family groups. Attacking non-predatory adults often causes the rest of the fauna to flee. However, if you attack a juvenile creature, its guardians will become aggressive, even if they're typically herbivores. And before you say anything, I discovered this by accident. I was aiming for a sentinel. Yeah, that's it. There was a sentinel who used a helpless baby creature as a shield. What a monster. Anyways, let's get to the final useless fact. Be warned, this fact is simultaneously the most random, most useless, and most convoluted of all the facts on this list. Number 20. Only the smallest scannable plants react to the wind and weather. Let me explain. So, on most planets, regular procedural plants are static meshes, right? Their leaves don't move in the wind, bushes don't move aside as you walk through them, and plants don't react to storms. Sure, the grass will be blowing right over, but the procedural flowers and ferns will just sit there. Of course, this makes sense from a technical perspective, as making thousands of pieces of flora react dynamically to wind would tank performance on most hardware and cause the rest to spontaneously combust. However, if you were to visit certain mega exotic planets, the kind with ginormous plants, you would see that certain procedural plants will actually blow in the wind alongside the grass. Now, it's just the smallest plants, of course, but this is still a pretty interesting phenomenon. What makes it stranger, though, is if you look directly at the plant, such as you would to harvest or scan it, it'll stop moving. It'll become static again. This backs up my theory that having interactive objects reacting to the weather would tank performance. So in the past, I only witnessed this phenomenon on these specific planets. However, today, you can see this occurring on regular planets as well, such as Aslapod Alpha. I believe this was added to regular planets as either part of the Origins or Next Generation updates, however, I'm not entirely sure. I play on PS5 also, which has more foliage than older consoles, so I'd be curious to see how these perform on PS4 and Switch. So if you have one of those consoles and you've seen this phenomenon yourself, let me know in the comments below. And you can use this portal address if you want to test it on the mega exotic world you saw in this video. But either way, that's my list of 20 more useless No Man's Sky facts. I hope you found this list equal parts entertaining and interesting. If you did, hitting that like button is like leaving a tip, except without having to spend any of your own money. And don't forget to join the discussion in the comments, as I have no doubt you will have even more fun facts of your own. And if deep dives into random topics are your jam, consider subscribing. I won't spam your feed, but I do publish videos mostly weekly. So, thanks for your support, and I'll see you in the next video. Maybe even one of these two. Adios!